Hello everyone, and today we're back into another top 5. And today we're going to be talking about the top 5 terrifying users in all of Loomian Legacy. So these are the Loomians that have terrifying as their ability, which is an ability that lowers the opposing Loomian's melee attack. So let's head right on to this top 5. Number 5 onto this list is actually going to be Garlash. Now, Garlash may not be the best Terrifying Loomian. I mean, it was either this or Your Soul to be number 5, but I went for Garlash because it does actually have solid bulk, unlike Your Soul. Plus, as a melee attacker, this thing can do some work. Of course, in the footage, I use a meme range one, so this showcase might not be the best use for Terrifying Garlash, but if you're actually using melee moves and are not me making meme sets, Terrifying Garlash can actually be very good and can be very good at stopping melee attackers. The only reason why it's at number 5 is that there's kind of no reason to run the Terrifying ability. Just like with Your Soul, who could just use Sharp Claws to hit harder, Garlash is the exact same thing. You could just use Devious to go through people's abilities, or you could just use Power Jaw to actually nuke the opposing Loomians. So, there's kind of no reason to use Terrifying unless you want to use a bulky water type. And if you want to use a bulky water type, you can use Cephalops, Malmurk, Barblast, Blowtox. I mean, there are a ton of other options. Like, it works. It's not terrible. Is the reason it's on number 5, but it's not the best Terrifying user. Number 4 into this list is actually going to be Redburn. Yes, we have a pre-evolved Loomian on the list, ladies and gentlemen. But the reason why Redburn is above Garlash as a Terrifying user is because it has better defense with the Drop of Youth. And it actually does have some stuff going for it. I mean, it can place down barbs. It can slap down items. It has Body Crash, so its melee defense can be utilized really well. Not to mention that Raging Flame can stun melee attackers. I mean, this is very good. I mean, Redburn is a very, very solid Terrifying user. It's probably one of the best pre-evolved Terrifying users in the game, which there aren't that many good ones of, unfortunately, other than Concreton. But Redburn is not in the top 3 because why wouldn't you just use a Searknight in this case? I guess if you want to not have the weaknesses to, like, the metal weaknesses, so I guess that's a thing. Not to mention that Redburn does have Body Crash and has more moves to have barbs and slapdown. So I guess there are reasons to run it if you don't want to run Soaring Steel, but you know, Redburn doesn't have crucial resistances that the metal typing has that can really help it out. And while it is more melee bulky, it doesn't have any way to get its health back because it's pretty much forced to run Health Amulet. Unlike with, like, Searknight, on the other hand, you could run Milkshake or Health Amulet to get HP back. And also, they hit harder, and they just have better defensive typing overall compared to Redburn. So, Redburn definitely is out of the top 3 just because Searknight is a thing. But it's still a very solid Terrifying user, and it actually can do some very good work in battle. Especially when you Raging Flame other melee attackers. So, it definitely deserves to be number 4 on the list. Number 3 onto the list is actually going to be Submari. Yes, defensive, terrifying Submari makes top 3 on this list. And it actually is pretty good. It does have a very bad defensive typing. I mean, it does have a lot of resistances, but it's quad weak to electric, which really doesn't help. And not to mention that it is neutral to fire instead of just resisting it, which is not good for a water type. It does have some legit resistances, though. I mean, it resists metal, it resists ice, and it resists a couple other typings as well. But the problem is, it's just so weak to so many typings. I mean, it's weak. It's quad weak to electric. It's weak to toxic. It's weak to grass. There's also a couple other weaknesses as well that I'm probably not mentioning. I mean, Submarine, keep in mind, it's a very good offensive Loomian, and with Terrifying, it does have very good bulk on the melee side, but, you know, it's mainly just used as a good Baffle user defensively. And while it can be very good as a Terrifying user, it's all the other moves that make Submarine shine. Not really too much it's Terrifying. It's the fact that it can use Aqua Jaws to lower melee defense. It's the fact that it can use Baffle to baffle out of a bad situation. It's the fact that it can use Sharpen to not mix and set up. So, It's all the other moves that make Submari really good. Terrifying is just a move that puts it over the top. It's not amazing, but it definitely deserves to be in the top 3. Number 2 onto the list is actually going to be Searknight. Now, it is questionable if either Searknight should deserve number 1 or if Tyrex could, but I decided to pick Searknight at number 2 because, you know, I don't think Searknight hits as hard as Tyrex, but let's talk about Searknight real quickly. Has barbs, has Raging Flame. Soaring Steel can actually hit water types neutrally, which is awesome, considering that Fire Metal can't hit water types. The fact that Soaring Steel can actually hit water types neutrally is really nice. And also, the fact that you can Raging Flame melee attackers is really awesome. Plus, it has great bulk on both sides, and the Terrifying pretty much just makes you live any melee hit. I mean, there are times where this thing can even live quad weak earthquakes. I have seen Searknight survive quad weak earthquakes before, which is absolutely insane. And if you get a Raging Flame and a couple sets of barbs up, Searknight is honestly a legitimate threat. The only reason why it probably is at number 1 is because it doesn't do as much damage compared to Tyrex. And even then, that is questionable considering the role Searknight plays. Searknight does not play as a heavy damage dealer. It plays as a defensive Loomian that can lower the opposing melee attack while also placing barbs. That's the role Searknight plays, and it fills its role really well. And that's why it's a number 2 Terrifying user in Loomian Legacy. So yeah. The best Terrifying user in Loomian Legacy is Tyrex. Now, it was a close call, considering Tyrex does have more weaknesses, but I think the thing that puts Tyrex over the top is that not only it has great defenses on both sides, but it also has a pretty solid melee attack and a very good offensive/defensive typing. Its typing is amazing. It's a Loomian that can hit the Venolin, Tundralin, Obsidragon meta super effectively. It can even hit Teclipse super effectively as well. It has Scapegoat as well, meaning that you can actually scapegoat and dodge those like pesky sap plants from opposing Loomians. Also, it's just a very good Loomian to use overall. It's a very good overall bulk. And while it does have some very bad weaknesses, like being weak to fire, being weak to grass, being weak to earth, overall, Tyrex might be one of the best Terrifying users in Loomian Legacy, and it's probably the most common Terrifying user in Loomian Legacy. It can't place barbs, and it doesn't have Raging Flame, but it does have other moves to counterattack. And it can actually hit very hard, and if you can get a +1 from Steel Crusher, you can be a sweeper very fast. It also has faster speed than Searknight, and better overall bulk compared to Searknight, and that's why Tyrex is the best Terrifying user in Loomian Legacy. But you could put Searknight at number 1 as well. It honestly just depends on your mood. So yeah, here it is, Tyrex, the best Terrifying user in all of Loomian Legacy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of me talking about the top 5 Terrifying users. If there's a Terrifying user I have missed, tell me in the comments below, and I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!